What if I told you that trophy base you've been trying to outsmart for years isn't a genius? What if it's just lazy? Today, we're tearing down one of the biggest beliefs in fishing, the idea of the educated fish that's seen it all. And I promise, by the end of this video, you'll look at your empty live well not as a failure of skill, but as a total misunderstanding of your opponent's real motivation. We're going to reveal why your favorite fast-moving lure is probably the absolute worst thing you can throw on a busy Saturday afternoon. So let me ask you right now, before we even start, when a fish ignores your lure, is it because it's smart, or is it just not worth the effort? Let me know down in the comments. We've all been there. You pull up to a popular lake, a place you know holds giants, but it's been fished hard every single weekend by dozens of other boats. The common wisdom, the stuff we've been told for 50 years, says these fish are pressured. They've seen every color of senko, every wobble of a crankbait. They've felt the sting of a hook. They've been in a live well. They've been released. They've learned. So we adapt, right? We use lighter line, more natural colors. We try to be stealthy. We spend thousands on gear to try and outthink a creature with a brain the size of a pea. We've been doing this for decades, passing it down from one generation to the next. These fish are smart, we say, shaking our heads after a tough day. But is that really what's happening out there beneath the surface? Let's start with a scene every angler knows. It's 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. The sun is up. There are 5 other boats within casting distance. You've been throwing a topwater popper since sunrise with no luck. You switch to a spinnerbait and burn it past every piece of cover. Still nothing. You see fish on your electronics. You know they're there, sitting right on the drop-off, but they won't bite. The frustration builds. You mumble to yourself, and these fish are just too educated. You assume they see your boat, they hear your trolling motor, and they recognize your lure as a fake. This is the standard diagnosis for a tough day on a public lake. It's the story we tell ourselves to make sense of the silence, the lack of bites. It's a convenient explanation, but it might just be the wrong one. Now let's dig into that smart fish theory for a minute. The argument is that through repeated exposure to anglers, fish develop a kind of conditioned response. They associate the splash of a lure, the vibration of a spinnerbait blade, or the shape of a boat with danger. In this view, the fish is an active student of its environment, learning to differentiate between a real shad and a $100 swimbait. We credit them with memory, with analytical ability, with a level of intelligence that allows them to outwit us. We believe they see our 6-pound fluorocarbon line and turn up their noses. This entire school of thought positions fishing as a battle of wits, a chess match where we have to be cleverer than our opponent. But this theory puts an awful lot of faith in the cognitive abilities of a fish. Here's the alternative, the idea we're exploring today. What if it's not about intelligence at all? What if the primary driver of a pressured fish's behavior is not learning, but energy management? Let's introduce the lazy fish theory. This theory proposes that a fish in a heavily trafficked environment isn't getting smarter, it's getting more and more conservative with its energy. Think about it. A fish's entire existence is governed by a simple equation, calories in versus calories out. To survive and grow, it must take in more energy than it expends. Every movement, every chase, every reaction is a calculation. And what we call pressure is actually a massive drain on the calories out side of their equation, which fundamentally changes their behavior. Let's use a simple human analogy to make this crystal clear. Imagine you're sitting on your couch watching a game. If someone walks in and places a plate of your favorite snacks right on the table in front of you, you're going to eat it. It's zero effort for a nice reward. Now imagine that same person tells you those snacks are waiting for you, but you have to get up, get dressed, and run a mile down the road to get them. Are you going to do it? Probably not. The effort far outweighs the reward. Your motivation isn't based on how smart you are. It's based on laziness and a simple cost-benefit analysis. The lazy fish theory suggests fish operate on this exact same principle. They are not making an intellectual decision to reject your lure. They are making an energetic one. So let's look at that energy equation more closely. For a fish in a quiet, pristine environment, the calculation is simple. It sees a bait fish, chases it, and eats it. The energy gained from the meal is greater than the energy spent on the short chase. Life is good, but now let's add pressure into the mix. Pressure isn't just seeing lures. It's the constant hum of trolling motors, the sound waves from depth finders pinging off the bottom, the shadows of boats passing overhead, the vibrations of wakes hitting the shoreline. All of this is unnatural and to a fish represents potential danger. It keeps them on a low level of alert, a state of constant stress. And stress for any living creature burns an incredible amount of energy without any caloric return. This constant stress from boat traffic and fishing activity fundamentally alters their behavior. A fish that is constantly on edge, constantly burning passive energy, just by being aware of its surroundings, can't afford to waste any more. It's like a car with a slow leak in the gas tank. You're not going to take it for a joyride. The fish enters a state of extreme energy conservation. It's no longer a bold predator roaming the flats looking for a meal to chase down. Instead, it becomes a reluctant opportunist. Its primary goal shifts from find food to don't waste energy. This is a critical distinction. It's not learning to avoid your crankbait, it's deciding that chasing your crankbait is a foolish waste of its dwindling energy reserves. So, what does a lazy, energy-conserving fish actually do? It hunkers down, it finds the safest, most stable piece of cover it can, like a deep brush pile or the darkest corner of a boat dock, and it stays there. It's not actively hunting, it's waiting. It's waiting for the easiest possible meal to drift right into its face. It will ignore 99% of the things that swim by because the energy cost of investigating or chasing them is too high. That chatterbait ripping by a foot over its head, too much work. That buzzbait sputtering on the surface, a ridiculous waste of effort. The fish isn't thinking, well, that's a fake. It's thinking in its own primal way, that's not worth getting off the couch for. Its strike zone shrinks from feet down to mere inches. Let's put this into a real-world scenario. You're on your favorite point, and you know there's a 5-pounder that lives in a specific brush pile. You fire a cast with a big, flashy swim bait and swim it right over the top of the pile. The base doesn't move. You think, wow, that fish is smart. It knows what a swim bait is. Now let's re-examine that moment through the lens of the lazy fish theory. The base saw the swim bait. It probably registered it as a potential food source, but then its internal calculator went to work. To eat that, I have to leave my safe cover, swim up 5 feet, accelerate to catch it, and then swim back down. That's a huge energy expenditure for one meal. The verdict? Not worth it? The fish's inaction wasn't a sign of intelligence. It was a sign of supreme energy efficiency, which we interpret as laziness. This realization should be a light bulb moment. If they are not smart but lazy, then our entire approach has to change. We have been playing the wrong game. We've been trying to solve a complex puzzle when the answer is actually incredibly simple. We don't need to be trickier. We don't need more realistic lures. We don't need to outsmart the fish. We need to appeal to its laziness. We need to become masters of presenting an opportunity that is so easy, so effortless for the fish to take advantage of, that its energy-conserving brain can't say no. This means shifting our focus from aggression and speed to subtlety and patience. It's a fundamental change in mindset from forcing a bite to offering a bite. So let's talk about the first and most critical adjustment you need to make. If the core of the problem is not their brain power, but their absolute refusal to expend unnecessary energy, then our strategy has to pivot completely. The solution is simple in concept, but for many of us it's incredibly difficult in practice. You must slow down. And I don't just mean turning the handle on your reel a little bit slower. I mean slowing down to a pace that feels agonizing, a pace where you question if you're even moving the lure at all. Imagine you're out there on a calm morning. You cast out a lure. You let it sink to the bottom, and then you wait. You let the current do the work. You might give it a tiny little drag across the bottom, moving it only an inch or two at a time. This is the new pace. This is the pace that speaks to a lazy fish. It's about making your bait the easiest possible target in the entire lake. Let's use the Ned rig as a perfect example of this principle in action. For years, the Ned rig has been called a numbers bait, but its real power is in catching pressured, seemingly uncatchable fish. Why is it so effective? It's the ultimate lazy presentation. When you cast it out and let it sink, it often stands straight up on the bottom. It doesn't do much, it just sits there, subtly quivering. To a base hunkered down and trying to save energy, this is the equivalent of that snack appearing on the table right in front of you. It doesn't have to chase it. It doesn't have to exert itself. It can just casually swim over, flare its gills, and inhale it. The Ned rig doesn't trigger a chase instinct, it triggers an easy meal instinct. It perfectly exploits the fish's laziness. The second part of the solution is presenting an easy target. This is closely related to slowing down, but it's more about the characteristics of the lure itself. You need to think like a lazy fish. What looks like a meal that requires the absolute least amount of effort to capture? This is why a wacky rigged Senko is arguably one of the greatest base lures ever invented, especially in tough conditions. It has a slow, tantalizing shimmy on the fall that perfectly imitates something that is dying or helpless. A healthy, fast-moving bait fish requires a chase. A dying, fluttering worm requires almost no effort at all. It's a defenseless, easy-to-catch protein package. When a lazy base sees that, it's an incredibly high-value target for a very low energy cost. Let's break down the appeal of that wacky rig a little more. You cast it out and you do nothing. You let it fall on a slack line. That slow, side-to-side flutter is the whole presentation. It's falling right into the fish's strike zone. The fish doesn't have to move up, down, or sideways. It just has to wait for the meal to be delivered. This is the complete opposite of power fishing, where we try to trigger a reaction strike out of aggression or instinct. With this finesse, lazy fish approach, we are triggering a reaction strike out of pure opportunism and energy conservation. The fish bites not because it's angry or territorial, but because it would be stupid from an energy standpoint not to eat something so easy. This leads us to busting a common myth. The idea that you always have to match the hatch perfectly on pressured waters. We spend so much time trying to find a crankbait that has the exact same color pattern as the local bluegill. But for a lazy fish, the type of meal is often less important than the ease of the meal. A perfectly matched, realistic swim bait that requires a 10-foot chase will be ignored, while a strange-looking, purple-colored, wacky-rigged worm that falls right on its nose will get eaten instantly. Why? Because the easy meal trumps the perfect meal every single time. Stop obsessing over having the exact right color and start obsessing over having the exact right, painfully slow presentation. Another perfect example of exploiting laziness is the drop shot rig. Think about what a drop shot does. It allows you to suspend a small, subtle plastic bait a few inches off the bottom and keep it in the exact same spot indefinitely. You can find a single fish on your electronics, drop the rig right on its head, and just shake the rod tip. The weight stays on the bottom, but the bait wiggles and quivers in place. The fish doesn't even have to move to investigate. It's the ultimate room service delivery for a lazy base. You are bringing the meal directly to its doorstep and keeping it there until it decides to eat. It's no wonder the drop shot is a dominant technique for pros fishing on highly pressured lakes. It is custom made for lazy fish. So, how do you apply this on the water? You need to fundamentally change the question you ask yourself when you pull up to a spot. For years, we've been trained to ask, what are the fish feeding on? Or, what lure will trigger a reaction strike? I want you to replace that with a new question. What is the easiest possible meal I can offer a fish in this specific piece of cover? If you're fishing a dock, the answer might be skipping a wacky rig into the darkest shade and letting it fall. If you're on a deep rock pile, it might be drop-shotting a small bait right on top of it. Always be thinking about minimizing the effort required from the fish. Make it so easy to eat your lure that it becomes an offer they can't refuse. This mindset will completely change how you view your tackle box. Suddenly that huge box filled with giant swim baits, fast-moving crankbaits, and loud, aggressive topwaters becomes your secondary arsenal. It's for those special days when the fish are active and feeding aggressively. Your primary weapon for day in and day out fishing on pressured water becomes your finesse box. The drop shot weights, the Ned rig heads, the small soft plastics, the light fluorocarbon line. These are no longer last resort tools. They are your new starting lineup. You're not downgrading, you're adapting to the true nature of the fish you're targeting. You're choosing to be a strategic angler who understands fish motivation, not just a brute who tries to force a bite. Let me tell you a quick story that drove this point home for me. I was fishing a small tournament on a notoriously tough, heavily fished lake. It was the middle of summer, hot and calm. Everyone, myself included, started the day throwing big topwater lures and deep-diving crankbaits. For 3 hours, nothing. Not a single bite in the whole field. I finally got so frustrated that I sat down, retied, and put on a tiny shaky head with a small finesse worm. I started targeting the most obvious high-percentage cover, but I fished it slower than I ever have in my life. I would cast to a stump, let it sit for a full minute, and then just barely crawl it over a branch. It was excruciatingly slow, but then I got a bite. And another. I ended up catching a limit and winning the tournament, not because I was a better angler, but because I was the only one fishing for lazy fish. There's one final piece to this puzzle: location. If a fish is in extreme energy conservation mode, it's not going to roam around looking for food. It's going to find the single best piece of cover or structure in the area and sit there. The best ambush point, the best shade, the best current break. It will not move far from this spot. This means that your casting accuracy becomes more important than ever. You can't just cast near the log, you have to land your lure in the very specific spot where that lazy fish is most likely to be sitting. A cast that's 2 feet off the mark might as well be in another lake, because that lazy fish is not going to move 2 feet to get it. You have to put the meal right on its plate. So let's bring it all together. The constant pressure doesn't create genius fish. It creates tired, stressed out, lazy fish. They respond by reducing energy expenditure at all costs. They hold tight to cover, their strike zones shrink 2 inches, and they ignore 99% of the fast-moving, aggressive lures that anglers throw at them. To catch them, we have to stop trying to outsmart them and start appealing to their laziness. This means using slow, subtle, finesse presentations that offer an easy, low-effort meal. Techniques like the Ned rig, the wacky rig, and the drop shot aren't just for small fish. They are the key to unlocking the jaws of the biggest, most pressured, and laziest fish in the lake. It's a complete paradigm shift, but it's one that will make you a much more successful angler on tough bodies of water. So, let's wrap this up. For years, we've been giving these fish way too much credit. We've been playing a high-level chess match against an opponent who really just wants to sit on the couch and have snacks delivered directly to its mouth. The biggest aha moment, the real turning point, is realizing that the lack of a bite isn't a rejection of your lure. It's a rejection of the effort required to eat it. That simple shift in perspective changes absolutely everything. It will force you to slow down, to be more deliberate, and to rely on subtlety over aggression. It will make you a better finesse fisherman, and you'll start catching those uncatchable fish that everyone else is zooming right past. Thank you for sticking with me on this one. If this changed your perspective, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next video where we break another rule. And now I really want to know what you think. After hearing all this, are you on Team Smart Fish or Team Lazy Fish? Let me know your honest opinion in the comments below. Let's argue about it. Until next time, tight lines.